Sabeeha, you've written one book, you've written the second one, interesting topic, co-authored it, I think, with a Jewish author, and it's about peace building with the Jewish community. Talk to us a little about the writing process, your inspiration, the process. How did you choose a co-author? Just 101
Sure.
briefly on that.
So my husband had been telling me for many, many years when our children were very young that I should start writing a book about our experiences because we had been in a position of trailblazers. We want our grandchildren to know what it was like to start a Muslim community, build a mosque, all of that. And I couldn't. I mean, life was happening and I was too busy. And he continued to impress that on me. It was when Omar was detained at the airport. Omar is our grandson with autism. And he was, this was 2010, 8-year-old boy. The family was getting on a plane to go to Disney World when he got pulled aside because his name was the same as a terrorist on the no-fly list, Umar Rahman. I mean, how many Umar Rahmans are there all over? You know, turn and look, turn around and you'll be surrounded by them. And the authorities kept saying that we know it's not him. He's a little child, but we have a process that we have to go through. How long will it take? A couple of hours. Missed their flight, were in detention. Umar got hungry and he started getting agitated. He started stimming. They would not let any of the parents go out to the food court to get any food for him because those were the rules. I was calling the press. I was calling my elected officials' offices, you know, making a big hue and cry over it, like, do something. It's a child with autism is being detained. Eventually, they let him go when the word came back that the guy is 21 years old. But that really shocked us and shocked me into writing. And my husband said that, you know, if you don't write now, we need to tell our stories. We need to raise awareness about Muslims. We need to reach people we cannot reach in person. We are giving all this interfaith in our local communities. But if you write a book, it'll get to the heartland, it'll get to the people on the west coast, it'll get to the people in the north, and the mountains, the deserts in the south, and do it not as an academic discourse, but tell it as a story, because story has the power to move hearts and change minds.
Which you did. It's a very easy read, and it's a very engaging read. So yeah.
Thank you. So that's what got me into writing. Now, how do you get into writing? I can do a whole session on it because I've been through that process. But I would say that, just very briefly, a difference between a memoir and an autobiography is that a memoir is about a theme. The difference between a memoir and any other work of nonfiction is that a memoir is an emotional experience. It is based on how you felt about something in a particular point in your life. I would say that to be a good writer, you have to be a good reader and read as much as you can and never stop reading, because that is what enables you to develop the craft of writing. There were some interesting surprises when I wrote the book. A woman called me wrote to me actually and said that I am a Christian woman. I am in love with a Pakistani student. Okay. We want to get married. His parents in Pakistan are objecting to it. I don't know what to do. Can you please help me out? I mean, that's the last thing I expected, was to become a marriage counselor. Yeah. And so we ended up chatting on the phone, and I think a year later they were married. But so that was very interesting. But another surprising thing was the amount of letters that I got from people who are not Muslims saying, now I know what to say when somebody says Muslims are violent. Now I know what to say when somebody challenges the Islamic faith. I feel as if I know your family. I'm going to make friends with my Muslim neighbor next door. Nice. So that's the reward. Nice. And that was very heartwarming.
Yeah. Can you unpack the process a little, Sabeeha? Like finding a publisher, editing,
Sure,
all
sure.
of that?
So in the beginning, I had to read books on memoir writing just to understand the craft of it. Uh, and in those books, it gave you a list of memoirs to read to give you some idea on how different authors have approached it. So I read those. So that was how I got started. Then then you sit down and you just start writing. Don't think about what you're going to write about. Don't think about an outline, because this is not a term paper. It is a memoir. It is about your emotional experience. Just start writing and see where it takes you, and you eventually find your voice. So that is what I did. And then when I finished my first draft, and don't edit while you're writing. Just keep writing. Just keep writing. Eventually you'll know what this is about. You'll gain your focus. Finish your manuscript, and then let it sit for a few weeks. Let it sit, don't think about it. Then come back to it, print it out, pick up a red pen and start editing. And cut out anything that does not drive the story forward. It's a great piece of story. It's a wonderful quote. It's a great episode. It's funny, it's moving, but it's not driving the story forward. Take it out. Take it out, redo it. Now you can show it to your spouse. Don't show it earlier, because he's going to say, oh, it's very good, Now you can show it to your spouse, Edit it again. Now show it to a trusted friend. Edit it again. Now show it to somebody you don't know, who can look at it objectively. Edit it. So as many drafts as you can do, the better. Then here,
do you accept all the input from spouse, trusted friend? Because these are not experts in reviewing or editing.
Yeah, they are readers, and they are responding as readers would respond. And you do want the readers to read it. So yes, you can overrule them. You have the right to overrule them, but in the end, it's your piece, it's your judgment call. And if you made the mistake, you live with it. So as many edits as you can, and then starts the hard part, which is finding a publisher. There's self-publishing, and then there is traditional publishing. Self-publishing is easy, because all you have to do is sign an agreement with Amazon or any other self-publisher, who will then print your book and put it online. Okay. You can do it very quickly, but it costs. You have to spend the money to do it, and you put it up there. But after that, all the proceeds, now I'm getting from a financial perspective, are yours to keep for the most part, depending on your contract. The problem, and you can do it right away, the problem with self-publishing is that bookstores, I'm talking United States, won't stop it. Those who give out awards will not review it. Those who write trade reviews on books will not review it. So that there is, and then it costs money. To go the traditional publishing rule, they take care of everything. They handle all the expenses, they do all the editing, they do all the copy editing, the developmental editing, the printing, the distribution, the promotion. They take care of it all. You don't have to worry about anything. They even design the book cover for you. The issue there is that it takes time. Once your publisher accepts your manuscript, give it a year. So right now I have my third book. It's due to the publisher on December 1st. It will be published in the fall of next year, September, October, somewhere around that time.
Can you tell us about the topic or not?
I am writing about my experiences of the 6 years that I lived in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, I'm Saudi born. I've spent the first 12 years of my life in Riyadh.
So, this is about Riyadh. Oh my goodness. When were you there?
1972 to 1984.
Okay. So I was there in the year 2000s. Okay. And yeah, so it's about right. Okay. Thank you. So usually you need an agent who can find a publisher for you. I got lucky because in my autism travels, I had developed a relationship with a publisher who publishes books on autism. There was a relationship there. They agreed to read my manuscript. Publishers will not take a manuscript to read if it's not coming from an agent. Otherwise, they'll get deluded. So not deluded, they'll just get overwhelmed. And so they agreed to read my manuscript. It was not done. It was halfway done. I just sent it draft because I knew that they'll at least know what the book is about and they'll know about my writing style. Forget about fixing it and making it perfect. And they took it. And that's all I needed was that you could just read it. They read it, they took it. I got lucky. They took my second book. They've taken my third book. So, and this publisher has been wonderful to work with because they're small. So they respond to me right away. If I send an email, I get a response the same day. And it's been a very, very good relationship. And I've continued with them. Now, coming to the second book. So I'll just fold it up. It's called We Refuse to Be Enemies, How Muslims and Jews Can Make Peace One Friendship at a Time. If you can look, it has a crescent and a star, and it has the Star of David in the flag. Yeah, nice cover. So this idea came about when threading my prayer rug. This is my first book. This was being published, and I thought that it would be a good idea to get an endorsement from a rabbi. You have to come up with endorsements, blurbs that are written at the back. And so I got a blurb from a priest, all these people who are notable. And I thought of Walter Ruby because he and I had done interfaith work together, and he is was working for an organization that did Muslim-Jewish relationship building. So I reached out to him and I said, "You work for a rabbi. Can you please ask the rabbi? Do you think the rabbi will be willing to write a blurb for this book?" And he said, I write his blurbs for him, and he, of course, has to approve it, but I need to read the book, of course. So I sent him the manuscript. I was actually in Pakistan at the time. I emailed him the manuscript. He read it in one day, and he wrote back to me, and he said, "You know what? Not only will the rabbi be willing to write a blurb, but I have an idea. Why don't the two of us co-author a book?" I said,
as you're telling your story, Sabeeha, I'm enjoying the serendipity so much. Like you started your autism work, and from that you had access to this publisher, and then you reach out to this one person who says, "Okay, let's write on it." So it's just things are linked like this, like a chain. It's beautiful. Serendipity is a nice thing. Yeah.
I didn't think of it that way. So he and his wife came to visit us. We sat down and we brainstormed. And by that time, well, even before that, when I had reached out to him, Trump was running for office. So by the time the two of us sat down, Trump had been elected, and Muslims and Jews were scared about their existence, their rights, their freedom of religion, all of that put together, their civil liberties. And we believe that now more than ever, we need to write a book about why it is important for minority faith communities like Muslims and Jews to come together, not let the Israel-Palestine issue divide us here at home if we are to survive here, if we are to thrive here, if we are to preserve pluralism, and if we are to preserve democracy. So that became the intent of our book. That was the core driving force behind it. And as we started writing, it became very apparent to me that it is just so important to have a co-author that you can work with. And I hadn't vetted this going into the process, and neither had we, that, will we be able to work as a team? You only find out when you work together. And it was a partnership that worked out well. He had certain skills that I didn't, and vice versa. And that complemented the work of our book. We had different writing styles. He's a journalist, literary. I am a memoirist, conversational. I turn things around very quickly. He delves deep into things. And that helped, strengthen the quality of our work. But it was also compatibility.
So he's writing some chapters and you're writing some chapters?
No.
Or not?
No,
okay.
we didn't do it that way. Okay. We approached it by taking a chapter So let's say we're talking about our love for the homeland, and I'm talking
Okay.
about Pakistan, and he's talking about Israel. That was
Oh,
one chapter. He told his story, I told my story. When we
okay.
took it to the publisher says this doesn't work.
Okay.
It is like two different books. It's like two separate stories. You have to, and it's his voice, it's your voice. You are missing the we voice. So you need to bring out the we voice and not make it two parallel stories. So we had to go back. We didn't change the content, but we changed how it was organized. We meshed it, braided the two stories together, and ended up with the we voice. And the we voice was the hardest part to do.
But is it in
Because,
first person then?
oh yeah, it's personal stories. It's personal stories.
But
It's like a
it's
memoir.
told in the first person, like I.
I'm saying Sabeeha did this, he's saying Walter did this, and in the end we
Okay.
summarize the chapter by saying this is what we
Okay.
think, this is what we
Interesting.
believe, this is how we feel.
I
Yeah,
want to see how this will come out. I haven't read a writing
it's
co-author.
online. Yeah, so it is available on Amazon in digital format. So if you can't get the hard copy, you can certainly
I
read the
will.
digital format. But it has had very widespread interest, and so he and I have virtually done 73 talks so far, book talks, and the book only came out in April.
But Sabeeha, what about personalities? Like you kind of vaguely knew this person, so the personality also has to
He's a
gel.
very different, he is a very different person. I'm a very different person. It's like, being in the workplace and working on a committee. You have many different people, but you have the same goal, and you work together, you put out documents together, you put out papers together. Here it was two of us, working to put out a book together. He has his personality. In fact, at one chapter, which we call the elephant in the room, which is Israel-Palestine conflict. So we start off by saying, let's just talk about what we agree on, our faith, the principles that we agree on that are common to our faith. Let's not deal with tough issues. So we get through that and we're saying, okay, so now our relationship has reached a point of trust and respect where we can talk about difficult issues. So we delve into that in that chapter, Israel-Palestine. And I turned on the tape recorder and we started talking. And we transcribed that. We agreed on certain issues, we disagreed on certain issues, and we left it at that. And then there is the second elephant chapter, which is about difficult passages in our scriptures that offended the other. And that's where he came and said, Sabeeha, when I see this in the Quran, it bothers me. I hear this about our history, it hurts me. So we delve into that. And at the end of the day, we agree to disagree, we agree on many issues, but we handle it in a manner where we listen to the other with the intent of hearing the other person out. And not rather than convincing the other person.
Not thinking of the next thing you're going to say, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yes, absolutely. Hear the person out with the intent of knowing how the other person feels.
The topic is possibly controversial. It's based on two communities that historically have conflict, especially for someone who's coming from Pakistan. It's the person is not really known to you. It's not like you've known him for years, but you delve into this and it works because you're ready to listen to each other. I think that's a very great takeaway from this for me.
You summed it up very well. Yeah.
Interesting. So, okay. So would you recommend co-authoring? Like, do you sometimes think, okay, I could have written this myself too, but
okay. So if I had written it myself, whatever the book was, I would have gotten it done much sooner. Co-authoring takes time and takes patience. We each have our schedules. So I may say, you know what, it's Ramadan. I cannot do any book talks. Which was this year. We totally blocked out April. But this is after the process. But even prior to that, I'm going away on vacation. This was pre-COVID. I cannot do any writing for these 2 weeks. He says, I'm going to Europe or Israel, wherever, I'm sick. I have another work-related deadline to meet.
But
So we had to accommodate one another, and so it took longer.
But Sabeeha, also otherwise, like, to me, writing is a very introspective solo activity. And suddenly there are two people in it now. When you're thinking, okay, what's Walter going to think? Or how will he respond? So,
Yeah. And we surprised one another during the writing process. I would write my piece and he would say, oh, I had no idea. You and I were married the same year, I mean, we were discovering things, that, and that was like, oh, wow, yeah, I was married in 71, you were married in 71. So, and then we weaved it. Okay. And so Walter ends up by saying, and so I married Mila in this year. And then I start my piece by saying, and I married Khalid in this year. He's saying, I fell in love with this girl in Israel and could have her. And then I start my piece by saying, well, in Pakistan, it doesn't work that way. Mine was, an arranged marriage. So we found ways of knowing when to jump in and take over the conversation. He would write a piece, I would write a piece, and then I would take it and say, all right, this is where you stop and I'll plug in my piece. And this is where I stop and you plug in your piece. And we did surprise one another by the way we felt and by our stories and by our positions. And we put it out there. You have to be honest when you are publishing a book. The reader has to trust you that you are telling the truth, and you have to expose your vulnerability. You have to say, I don't know. I don't understand this. I don't know where this came from. I can't resolve this. Nothing should be neatly tied up. There has to be ambiguity. There has to be conflict, because that's what life is. And so you have to be truthful.
That makes it real. And relatable.
It makes it believable, then relatable, exactly. Then the reader can relate to it and say, yes. And, this is what she went through, or this is what he went through. My story is different. Are
you also finding resistance from your own community to this idea of Muslim-Jewish friendship?
Yes. So every time a conflict erupts in Israel, it sets us back. Because emotions here become, surface, they become very sensitive, and even the best of friends will pull back and wait for the dust to settle before they can come together again.
I can imagine.
Many are able to continue talking, picking up the phone, calling one another, not letting this get in the way. So yes, there are people who believe that unless the conflict is resolved overseas, there's no point in being friends here at home, because in doing so, you are betraying the cause, the Palestinian cause.
And I think that's why this book is so important.
I see it differently. Yeah.
That's why this book had to be written, and I'm sure it's going to be a really powerful piece in this whole conversation.